All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We still maybe have a few people coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So firstly, this session is part of a series of constellation sessions that have been worked on with all of our residents and as part of an ongoing series. And the reason it's called Constellation is that our residents have come together over the past few months to ideate, work together, thinking about different places where they have expertise, and to create these programs and then bring them back to you all. In essence, creating a partner-to-partner network. This year, our focus has been on leadership in arts education, and we're really excited for all of the hard work that all of our residents have done this year. So we would like to thank everyone who's been part of the cohort this year as we move on through our constellation session. And today we will be working with Sophia, who will talk to us about collaboration with public schools and arts organizations. So I'm Ariel Frost. I'm the manager of partnerships and learning here at Ingenuity, and I'm joined today, as I previously said, by Sophia Padget Pérez, who's our Constellation resident and the artistic director of CPS Lives. And they're going to introduce themselves a little bit more in a moment. And also Kendall Hill, who's the student programs coordinator of the CPS Department of Arts Education. And we've got just a few little housekeeping things to make sure that everyone has the best experience today. So if you'd like, feel free to update your name and include your pronouns and your organization's name. And note that this session is being recorded, and slides and handouts will be available following the session. Usually takes us about a week. And closed captioning is also available. So if you navigate and would like to turn on your closed captioning, you can do that at the menu bar at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, take it away, Sophia.
Oops. I accidentally, oh, there we go. Okay, wonderful, awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for Synergy in Action, Cultivating Leadership Through Arts and Public School Collaboration. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I'm kind of just going to take a quick peek at who all is here. I think I saw some folks that I know, and I'm so grateful that y'all are here today. Awesome. So to get started, I'm just going to do some quick introductions for you all. This is me. This is a photograph of me. It's black and white. I am in front of a wood background, and I have wavy hair and 2 long braids. My name is Sophia Guadalupe Padget Pérez. I use any pronouns, and I am currently the artistic director for CPS Lives. CPS Lives is an arts organization that pairs local professional artists with a Chicago public school for 1 to 2 years to collaborate on a project that showcases the lives and stories of the school and their communities. The mission of CPS Lives is ultimately to create residencies in Chicago public schools that provide expansive experiences for students and professional artists alike. And I'm so excited to be joined by my former colleague and personal friend, Kendall Hill. He uses he, him pronouns and is currently the student programs coordinator for the Department of Art Education at CPS. And I'd love to just have Kendall come off mic really quickly to give a little description of himself.
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you, Sophia, for that awesome introduction. My name is Kendall Hill. As they were saying, I am a tall African-American male. In this picture, I have blonde hair, but I actually basically do not anymore. My hair is all black once again, and I wear clothes that are sometimes a lot bigger on me already as a 6 foot person because that's just how it goes.
The vibe.
Yeah, but so nice to be here and meet you all or see some of you guys again. And also, I work for CPS Department of Arts Education. And my specific department, we work on um, the well, I specifically work on the art experiences in the student programs department, but our whole department as a whole works on things all across the arts in CPS, such as policy or professional learning, long-term development of like new learning curricula for CPS. And specifically, I'm in student programs and work with our department, with my team to make interesting and new events and programs for our students within CPS. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kendall. And we're going to get a little bit more into Kendall's role and all the other amazing things that he does in the city of Chicago a little bit later in the second half, where he's going to join me for a discussion as well. So before we get started, first off, let's take a moment to acknowledge that we are currently hosting this webinar in so-called Chicago on the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, or Council of Three Fires, the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe nations, as well as the Ho-Chunk, Meskwaki, Sauk, and Miami nations, and many others. I invite us all to take a moment to honor them as the original stewards of this land who continue to do so today. Additionally, I invite us to hold space for those whose lineages were involuntarily brought to these lands through the violence of the transatlantic slave trade. The ongoing legacy of slavery continues to impact Black communities here in Chicago and all over the world today. Let us take the time to reflect on the effects of colonization and displacement on Indigenous peoples and how these harmful truths continue today. It's important for us to be able to carry the legacy of these conversations with us as we engage young people in educational settings. How can we, as educators and leaders in our education, combat the negative impacts of these histories in our classrooms and in everyday life? I invite you all to sit with this and encourage you to learn and engage with Native peoples of our communities. So I just wanted to quickly shout out the Chi Nations Youth Council the Chi Nations Youth Council, CNYC, was created in 2012 and comprised a diverse group of youth and adults with a mission to create a supportive, open environment for Native youth, raise awareness of cultural identity, and promote a healthy lifestyle through arts, activism, and education. The Chi Nations Youth Council has also created the First Nations Garden. There's a little quote from them, which states, "Our mission is to provide a healing space for Chicago's First Nations communities and promote public knowledge and appreciation of Chicago's Indigenous landscape and ecosystems. Our shared vision is to create a preeminent cultural and educational hub within the Albany Park neighborhood." So I would highly encourage you all to check out these folks and all the amazing work that they're doing. Awesome. So let's get started. So what to expect? I wanted to give you all a little breakdown of how this webinar is going to go today. So it's broken up into two parts at the moment. The opening question and grounding exercise, which will be what we're going to do next, and that will take about 10 minutes. And then we're going to get into some history lessons. We're going to lay the foundation of it. Take a look at the history of Chicago Public School as a whole, as well as the history of arts partner organizations collaborating with the Chicago Public School system. And then sort of the bulk of this webinar is going to be exploration and inspiration, finding synergy, where I'm going to give you all a few examples of some curriculum and arts projects that I have personally worked on with my teaching artists that I feel are really, really relevant to the topics that we're going to have it today. And then we'll have a 5 to 10 minute break. I want to give you all some time to marinate on all of this. And then part two, we're going to get into the second part of the opening question and grounding exercise, which will be another 10 minutes. And then an insight scoop, we're going to bring Kendall on and have a little conversation with him about the topics we are addressing here for about 25 minutes. And then we'll have a closing with some resources and recommendations. I have a lot of book recommendations for you all, so I hope that will be helpful for your research moving forward after this webinar. All right. So our opening question and grounding exercise. So this is obviously not a school in Chicago. You can see the palm trees. I did grow up in Miami, Florida, and Miami-Dade County Public Schools is the 4th largest school system in the country. So right next to CPS, which has been a real pleasure to see the differences and similarities of the two public school systems as I've been working in this landscape for about 5 years now. And I really, in this opening question, I want to pose for you all to take a minute and think back to your school experiences. And we'll get a little school reunion right now. So everybody get a little pen, a little paper, maybe something to draw with, or feel free to write in the chat. I'd like you to take a deep breath and think back to your elementary, middle school, or high school experience. Imagine your inner child walking through the front doors. What colors are the walls? Who are you surrounded by? What do your classes look like, or sound like, or feel like? What parts of your school experience shaped who you are today? And I want everybody to just take, like 5 minutes or so to kind of write and think back to that time period of your life and really, really relish in your inner child right now. And I'm going to play a little bit of music for you all, and we can get into it. everybody. I know that was a little bit quick, but I'm excited to hear from you all and share. If you can all start sending, your stuff in the chat, but I'll answer the prompts first, and then if anybody would like to come off camera and share that way as well, we can totally do that. But let me advance to the next slide. Oops. There we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is my elementary school, which funny enough was called the same name as my high school, Coral Reef Elementary School. And then I went to Coral Reef High School. But here, let me share with you what I have written up. When I think of my school, I think of an ocean reef dried up to create the landscape of my childhood. I remember Spanish, art, and music teachers without a classroom of their own, pushing carts filled with supplies to each grade level for class time, where my budding relationship to the arts first began. I think about Jamaican patties in the lunchroom, trips to the local park to gather tadpoles, hurricane days instead of snow days, and the gym was always outside. My passion for art took me to the visual arts department of my high school, where in a school of 3,000 students, there was one arts instructor. I was told at one point there was as many as 5, but that was before my time. One of the coolest projects we had came about from a donation of plaster gauze that was supposedly making its way to Haiti for medical earthquake relief, but ended up making it to us instead. We spent the whole day taking hundreds of boxes out of a truck, sweaty from the Miami heat, and buzzing with the possibility of our new supplies. My school experience was full of resilience and informed by the culture of our Caribbean neighbors. I am grateful for how my experiences shaped who I am today. So, does anybody feeling brave and want to come off camera and share from the prompts what they were thinking about, what their school experience was like? That would be great. Feel free. And I'm going to take a look at the chat as well. Awesome. Maritzia said the size of the classrooms and the number of students they were able to hold in my elementary school made me realize the size of the world compared to my house and my neighborhood. And Vero, shout out Vero. I entered my high school through the band room door and began my day surrounded by white cinder blocks, signed and doodled by at least a decade of previous band students who had long since graduated. I was greeted by fellow musicians and the smell of valve oil and Cheetos and Gatorade. Often we'd have a before school rehearsal. Oh, and Ariel had a similar situation, the cinder blocks, but with orchestra instead of band. That's awesome. Stephanie, my school experiences, bright art, music, and culture/diversity surrounded me. Opportunities to participate was open to all. ELRA after school opportunities began at a young age, volunteering, National Honor Society, LGBT clubs, and this was in the 90s. School newspapers, my ballet company, writing and art competitions, traditions, college town. Awesome. These are great, y'all. So feel free to continue, sending these in the chat. I think it's really, really lovely for everybody to see, where we're all coming from, what our school experiences were as we're taking the time to collaborate with schools now as adults. I think it's really important that we don't lose that inner child and that what is informing, how we navigate our relationships to schools now. So that was wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Great. Awesome. Okay. Next, history lessons, Chicago Public Schools and arts organization partnerships with Chicago Public Schools. So I'm going to give a brief rundown what I found in my research, which has been helpful to inform how we got where we are today, basically. So much of the start of the public school system we know today came out of a tumultuous time, with student and teacher ratios drastically imbalanced and segregation at an all-time high, affecting the education of Black and Brown students all over the city. So as you can see, in 1980, that's when the school desegregation decree was signed. And we can imagine that was only about 40 years ago. And we can see how redlining is still very prevalent within the city of Chicago, and the disparities of access from neighborhood to neighborhood reflects directly back into the school system. So when thinking about this histories and having this context, you have to ask yourself the questions of how has this history continued to impact our educational system today? When we take that into account, Chicago's fractured cultural landscape, where are folks being left out? Or are they not being considered in these systems? Which leads us to the history of arts organizations collaborating with Chicago Public Schools. How did we even start doing the work that we're doing today? So unfortunately, again, came out of a 1979 budget crisis. So the school day was shortened. Almost all the art teachers were laid off. And in the 1990s, there was this shift to kind of figure out how are we filling this gap, because there is absolutely a need for arts education within our public school systems. And that's when these collaborations with art organizations started to be utilized. And this is important to think about because understanding that arts organizations partnerships with CPS began after the turn of a budget crisis, we have to come to a point where our organizations are many times the only arts education that students within CPS are getting access to. And so we need to strive for a Chicago public school landscape where partnerships with orgs is not a replacement for arts education, but a supplementary aspect to an already thriving arts ecosystem within public education. And these are really important things to keep in mind as we're kind of understanding how to collaborate with arts or collaborate with the Chicago Public Schools, as well as thinking about relevancy of our curriculum, thinking about this history as well. All right, so exploration and inspiration, finding synergy. So I'm going to get into a few different arts projects and collaborations with Chicago Public Schools that I have found are really aligned with these kinds of thought processes. But I'd like to invite you all to watch a video first. Oh, okay, there we go. And so this was a collaboration with one of our newest performance artists, Jess Smoot, who was at Cesar Chavez Elementary. And they did not have a lot of insight about this school. The school came to us like wanting to have some kind of arts curriculum put in place for them, and just jumped at the opportunity to create a program for performance art. And one of the things, as Jess was getting to understand and really get to know the community of the school, was asking questions to the students like, what do you want your school to look like? What do you want if you were to rule your school, if you were to be the principal, if you were to be your own teacher? What would that look like for you? And what would you say to administrators or adults in your life about these things that you're interested in or things that aren't coming to you in the way that you'd like them to? So I invite you all to watch this video and sort of think of it as an interesting way to go about creative feedback. What kind of students' experiences and needs can be identified in the video that was created?
Come every day for recess. I love this place. I'm jumping. This place is my favorite. Oh my gosh, that makes me so
An open letter to the adults, our teachers, our administrators, our caregivers, our politicians, and all the adults in our community who may not know one of us, but who are still creating the world that will be given to us one day.
There are many things we would like you to know. First of all, it's a lot of pressure being a student. You guys say it's easy, but it's not.
We have a lot of weight on our shoulders. We have to worry about grades, our homework, and how our teachers are going to treat us.
We have to worry about what our friends and classmates are thinking about us, about making friends, and even worry about the world outside of school.
We don't get a choice in it all either. We have to come to school.
We don't get to choose what we wear, or what we learn, or what we eat, or what teachers we have, or what we do.
We don't get to choose how much homework we have. If we did, we would have 0. We already spend too much time at school.
We have to ask to do anything. We can't just eat a snack when we're hungry or go to the bathroom if we need to. We always have to ask, and a lot of times the teacher says no.
Our teachers try hard, they really do, but sometimes they aren't great either.
Sometimes they just need to chill a little bit, maybe take a break.
Sometimes they're probably just sleepy or tired.
Maybe they need a cup of coffee. Every teacher likes coffee, I think.
Sometimes teachers are so mean. I want to be mean back, but I don't because I know I will get in trouble if I do.
Sometimes they'll just repeat questions over and over again, even when we don't know the answer, like, I get it, just help me.
Some teachers are rude and scary when we don't answer them. I don't know why teachers have to punish all of us when some of us didn't do anything.
They think I'm their child, but how they scream at me.
Teachers don't need to be aggressive. We start feeling a lot of emotions. We're anxious and we're depressed from the yelling.
We get our recess taken away, and then we have no breaks in our school day.
Sometimes I hope there's a substitute.
They're not all bad though.
Some teachers be mad fun and make things not boring.
Some teachers support us a lot. Like if we don't have people that support us at home, we still have these amazing teachers that help us through the hard times and make everyone feel welcome.
We're really grateful for those teachers.
Right now, school is boring.
A place where kids get in trouble.
A place where I have to listen and can be heard.
It needs better tutoring, better research, and better support for teachers.
What's the point of school when it's like this?
We want a better school.
We want to learn.
We want to explore things we're interested in.
We want learning to be fun instead of boring.
We want more games and technology because that's how we learn best.
We are humans too. We need a break.
We need longer recesses and lunch. Let us meet our needs so we can learn better.
Sometimes we didn't get a good night rest. If we're tired, let us sleep.
We can't learn if we're not well rested.
We need snacks. Let us eat in class. Let us get water and go to the bathroom. We don't always get enough time in between classes.
And make our cafeteria lunches better. They're gross.
If we build our own school, it would be way different.
We would have our own spaces, desks, and lockers that we could add our own designs to. My locker would have all sorts of cute decorations.
My desk would even look like a car.
We would have the best technology, computers, and smartphones with learning programs.
Our libraries would be full of books and other cool resources like science experiment equipment.
Our classrooms would have chill out areas for when we needed a break.
Our teachers would be kind to us and have what they need to give us the best education.
The cafeteria should be stocked with delicious, healthy food that doesn't make us want to throw up.
We would get to choose the things we want to learn. We'd get to learn about the things that interest us.
We'll have more field trips. We'll get to learn by seeing things outside of our school.
We have plenty of time for fun classes, and we will have long recess where we get to be outside so we can have plenty of time to recharge for the rest of our school day.
And most of all, zero homework.
No more homework.
No homework.
We might be kids, but we're smart.
Let us be smart.
We know more than you think we do.
And we want better.
Sincerely, your students.
Sincerely, your students.
Sincerely, your students.
Sincerely, your students. Your favorite one.
So I'd love to just hear everybody's first initial responses after seeing this video, hearing from the students, getting some insight, into Cesar Chavez and their student needs, their student wants, what they're thinking about when they're in their school, and how that could potentially inform how you might go about a curriculum or a project with the students in the school. Oh, Ariel said, "I'm not crying, you're crying." Yes, this video is very, very, I resonate a lot with it, for sure. Getting some hand claps, yeah. Student voice is essential. Thank you, Katya. Maya says, I love this project. Made me realize that there aren't many opportunities. We get to hear the thoughts, complaints, and feelings of young people. Maria said, students know the experience of their teachers. And yes, that's why I think this project, as an artist who did not know anything about this school, and was just very grateful to be collaborating with elementary school students and wanted to get an insight and idea of what it actually means to be part of this community. And Jess was able to do that through this prompt with the students and by just talking with them about their experiences and having that be the pinnacle of what this collaboration ends up being in the end. Young people feel very constrained and unheard and have few choices throughout their school day. It's very true. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, y'all. These are wonderful responses. Oops. Okay. Next slide. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys my secret sauce. We're going to get into my personal approach and CPS Live's personal approach for school partnerships. And I've kind of broke them up into 3 different chapters or situations. We're going to look at cultural and historical contexts of schools that you're working with, accepting rejection, and celebrating synchronicity, and then room to grow and flow, thinking about what's next, what are we doing after this? All right. So, cultural and historical context, some questions to ask yourself before you even step foot in the school. When you are partnering with a school, how do you prepare your teaching artists for the historical and cultural context of that school? So we got to become historians for a little bit, you know? I think it is really important, just as we kind of laid the foundation for thinking about arts partner organizations with CPS. Each school has its own unique history, its own unique story of how they got to where they are today, whether that school was built in the 1800s or it's a super new school that was just, you know, made in the last like 10 years. And when you become a historian and you think about these things, you're able to understand the impact of the school on the broader communities and the neighborhoods that the school is located in. So, for example, this year I'm working with a really awesome artist, Terry Carson, who lives just on the street, is able to walk to Diet High School. And Diet High School had a really interesting history because during the late, like August to mid-September in 2015, the school was at risk for being closed. I think that their last graduation had about 12 students, so it was in line to be closed. But however, this was the only school that was a neighborhood school that served the Bronzeville area. So a group of education activists went on a hunger strike for over 19 days in an attempt to save the school. In September of 2015, CPS announced that the school would open again as Diet High School for the Arts, an open enrollment arts-focused neighborhood high school for the 2016-2017 school year. So given that history, Terry Carson, who is an experimental film artist, decided that the project that she would like to bring to Diet was an experimental film collective. So the students would be able to create a documentary that focuses on this history and understanding this history while also capturing the legacy of the students' lives today that would not be possible without the impacts that this hunger strike had on the community. So really important things to think about before you even set foot in the school or even get started on this conversations. Do you have that context? Do you have that history? That will be really imperative and informative on how you walk through your relationship with that school. And then once you've kind of done your research, what kinds of conversations are you having and with who? So identifying leaders of these communities, seeing each teacher, administrator, and student as the leader of their own artistic journeys, which you can learn from. So once you actually do step foot into that school, what kinds of meetings are you having with the different administrators, with the teachers? Are you able to get the full scope of what's happening within that school through these kinds of conversations? And that will be a really great place to start when thinking about curriculum, thinking about partnerships and projects with your teaching artists and those schools as well. All right, accept rejection and celebrate synchronicity. So what I mean by accepting rejection is understanding that as an arts organization, arts partner, it might not be the right fit, and that's totally okay. And my role at CPS Lives, I often call myself the matchmaker. So thinking about, you know, student needs, student wants, school like relevancy, particularly to each teaching artist that you're working with. So at CPS Lives, we work with a super big diversity of different mediums and practices. So thinking about, if an artist, lives in that neighborhood, the kind of access, like personal relevance and location, that's going to make the ease of working with these schools a lot better for them. But also thinking about the current curriculum that's already in place for those schools. So, if a school is already really specifically working on some kind of curriculum that is talking about, say, like migration, or talking about, historical contexts, that can be a really great place to start in fleshing out curriculum that is a good fit and is matching up with the school's culture and what they're already thinking about. And then, through that, you can acknowledge when you might not be the right choice for a school. And through that, you need to honor the school's needs and bandwidth, as well as your teaching artist capacity. So, through these things, you can figure out if it's the right fit, and if this is truly sustainable for the teaching artists and for the schools. We can think about how teachers hold multiple job descriptions at any time. My mother is a first grade teacher, and I know that's not the only role that she has at her school. So your enthusiasm to bring art to a school should never overshadow the capacity of teachers and administration to be able to facilitate that conversation or that collaboration. And then finally, room to grow and flow. So does your curriculum follow a one-size-fits-all narrative? So have you created a curriculum that you feel can be placed into any school around the city? And if you do, like, how can you challenge that? How can you push it a little bit more? If it seems like you can take the same projects to schools all over the city, pause and see where things can be evolving and edited for each school community. So are you creating a curriculum that is directly in flow with the needs and interests of your students at each school you work with? And then how do you receive feedback from students and school staff about that curriculum? Are there other avenues that you're taking to, as opposed to, just surveys, which we know surveys are really awesome and they work really well to a certain extent. But again, those conversations that you're having with the leaders of your school, which are also the students. Students are, first and foremost, should be the leaders of what they're engaging in. And the school year has ended. Where do we go from here? And that's one of the reasons why I really love that we call CPS Lives the 1 to 2 year residency, because we encourage artists to spend 2 years with their schools, really engage and become community members within that school, as opposed to just visitors. I'm just going to check the chat really quickly. Oh yeah. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for all your things that you guys are talking about. So I would love to get into a couple examples for you all of projects that I really resonate with in terms of this model and this way of thinking about cultural competency within schools. And so first, I'm going to talk about Moose Elementary. So Moose Elementary is located along the Bloomingdale Trail, which spans multiple neighborhoods on the west side of Chicago through Logan Square, Humboldt Park, and the West Tyne neighborhoods. So you can see here, I put in a little photograph of my favorite part of the 606 trail, which is these really lovely trees here. And then the front of Moose Elementary School, which is a gorgeous school that has incredible mosaic installations just scattered throughout the school as well. And so the artist that we had here, his name is Chris Echeverria. And when we first started having meetings with these schools and getting to know the school and their landscape and what they were interested in, we found out that the 5th grade class was currently thinking about a unit on migration. And so this project that Chris created was in direct response to the curriculum already in place at the schools, as well as the school's proximity to the trail and its role as a catalyst for movement throughout the west side of the city. So one of the things that he was engaging in with the students was thinking about map making, thinking about migration mapping. And one of the, things that students do every day is they take a little trip to school. So the students sort of mapped out what their route looked like from their home to the classroom. And this was one of those drawings that the students created and were put up for a small exhibition in the lunchroom. And these, as they sort of began to talk about migration a little bit more, and thinking about map making as well, the question was posed, if you were to create a mythological creature for Chicago that is located within the map system, as we've seen, like the Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that in maps, previously, what would that look like? Like what kind of mythological creature could they think of to be in a map of their neighborhood or a map of Chicago? And these were some of the drawings that the students had created, and a lot of them got really in depth into the different activities that each creature could do, or the different, what their limbs are capable of, what kind of superpowers they might have. And these are really, really exciting to think about that personal narrative for them of what they would hope a mythological creature could be in their neighborhood in Chicago. And they also created these faux stained glass drawings with little folder things that people put in their binders as well. So the end result of this project is ultimately going to be a large scale maps with these mythological creatures superimposed into a map of Chicago as well. So I thought this was really, really smart way of thinking about curriculum that's already in place in the school, and how can we expand upon that in a creative way, because you think about the ways in which curriculum is posed to students, there's not always time or space to expand upon that in a visual way. And for visual learners like myself, this would be a really, really awesome way to continue talking about migration. And as we also think about the city of Chicago, and it is built upon migration, built upon immigrants, and particularly now as we see an influx of immigrant students coming to the Chicago public school system, this is extremely relevant for the history of today. Awesome. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So next, I'd love to talk about the Chicago Agricultural Sciences School. And this school is located in the Mount Greenwood neighborhood, and it was built on the site of the last farm to survive within the city limits. And now there are more farms popping up, including like the Urban Growers Collective, but this was the last historical farm that was located within the city limits at the time. And this is a photo by one of our previous artists in residence, Andrew Miller, of the 2 llamas or alpacas that they have there. I think one of their names is Tina, which is so cute. So the students who go to the Ag Sci School, they are directly working with the land at all times. Like they are collaborating together to keep the working farm that they have on their campus afloat. So this school is currently the only one of its kind in the Midwest, and it sits on a 72-acre campus, and 40 of those acres are actually dedicated to the working farm. And this is another photograph by Janet Messick-Mackey. I'm just gonna check the chat really quick. Gina, awesome. So with this history in mind, and thinking about how students are directly working with their landscape, like at all times, it is ingrained into the curriculum. Our current artist in resident, Kat Auden, has been working with CHS this school year with the 2 senior art classes. So Something that we found out in our time touring the school and talking with the art teachers and the principal, the seniors at the Ag Sci school have a strong sense of pride in their class and have been known to come to the school early to watch the sunrise on the football field together. They just have a really, really good sense of community within their senior class. And so it made a lot of sense to have this project for them because it's just so coveted, like anything that they have in their senior year is really, really important to them. So Kat is working with the 2 senior classes, and they're being inspired by the natural cycles of the sun, the earth, the harvest. In these lumen prints that I have up here, the students collected natural plant and fiber materials from the school's farm and their surrounding prairie landscape, and created these lumen prints in response to their relationship to the land that they tend to as a community. So this project is ongoing and will culminate in a collaborative exhibition at the end of the school year to celebrate their connection to the school, the farm, and the land as the graduating seniors. So these are really lovely, ghostly lumen prints that they made together, and I feel like it taps a lot into that nostalgic energy of the history of the school, but is all things that they interact with on a daily basis and are thinking about in their curriculum. All right. Okay, so we're going to get into Tilden High School now. So Tilden High School is a school located in between Canaryville and the Fuller Park neighborhood. And our artist in residence at Tilden High School a few years back was really well-known artist Norman Teague, who is actually an alumni of Tilden High School. And when he came back to the school for the first time to speak with the principal and tour the school, it was his first time ever coming back to his school. And he noticed that the wood shop was not part of the curriculum in the school anymore, which was something that he remembers from his time in the school. And so he proposed returning to the school to provide students with the opportunity to learn the basics of woodworking, and generated a curriculum based off of the Wall of Respect, which is what I have up for you here today. The Wall of Respect was a public artwork created in 1967 by the Visual Arts Workshop of the Organization of Black American Culture. This mural was a staging ground for debates about community and identity and played an important role in the Black liberation movement of Chicago. It is unfortunately not, you're not able to view it anymore, as it was, I believe, destroyed in a fire in 1971, I think, but I'm going to give you all a quote from artist Setu Jones about this particular mural. It was not listed on any official travel brochures as a must-see attraction, but it was a stop that many Black people made while visiting Chicago. My grandfather first showed me the wall. It was in the neighborhood where he grew up. It was a symbol of pride, pointed to as a ray of hope by residents in the South Side, like my grandfather. Whenever I visited the wall, there were always other Black or African-American visitors there as well, coming to a modern-day shrine. So the students that Norman Teague were working with were introduced to this historical significance of the Wall of Respect. And here they participated in an exercise where they were asked to think of folks that they would have on their own Wall of Respect. So you can see, you know, mom, grandma, pops, Mr. T, who's one of the other co-instructors, you know, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks. These are all figures that they were already thinking about in their lives and that they felt contributed to their own identity and their own interests as well. So they, as none of the students were actually alive when the wall was created, they were sort of able to have their own Wall of Respect through these exercises. And as a result, this turned into thinking about how they could use woodworking to create their own wall, essentially, as an exercise. So the students were first, you know, working with foam board, thinking about structures, thinking about architecture, thinking about how, you know, this would even stand on its own. And then got into, you know, wood chip boxes, thinking about, you know, this as being a catalyst for what a building could be as well, exploring stability and murals on buildings as well. And then it culminated into these really cool structures that they were able to create and figure out how to bring that stability into the woodworking as well. And they came away with some really, really amazing experiences through the class. And it was a culmination of their new skills informed by the research from the Wall of Respect. I'm just going to check the chat really quick. Awesome. Okay. All right, we're going to look at Peyton College Prep next. And we are looking at another artist in residence who is also an alumni of Peyton College Prep, and that is Miguel Limon. And so he returned to his alma mater to create the project Ink to Paper. And so I'm going to read you some of the things that he wrote about this particular curriculum. One of Peyton's art teachers, Pat Guetzi T, is a faculty sponsor for various clubs, including the Art Club and the Queer Student Alliance. And Miguel Limon was actively involved in both of those clubs at his time at the school. So recently, students have expressed concerns about a recent change implemented by the school administration, which is the reduction of gender-neutral bathrooms. These bathrooms were initially opened in response to the efforts of teenagers during Miguel's time at the school and the clubs. So to address this issue, Miguel decided to engage with the students to co-create flyers and posters informed by graphics of previous movements. The hope is to scaffold an entry point into printmaking so students can take action in and outside of the school community. So Miguel was able to do a brief risograph workshop in collaboration with the Queer Student Alliance. And their aim was to generate interest and establish a curriculum for poster design and printing geared towards teenagers. So you can see here, this was the original student sketch, and this became the final risograph print from the student sketch. And here's another one. So working alongside the students, Miguel explores public domain archives, uncovering the impactful use of print media in historical social movements specific to Chicago, including the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Chicago Defender, and the Chicago Women's Graphic Collective. Additionally, students embark on photography journeys to create meaningful spaces that reflect their worldviews and communal experiences. Leveraging screen printing and risography techniques, they may then transform their research findings and photographs and personal narratives into a thoughtful and visually compelling print media. And here's another one. So students are participating in research, art making, and community building through this project. The school administrators are additionally participating in regular communication and collaboration, incorporating their expertise into the decision-making of these posters. Additionally, there is an opportunity for community forums or workshops catered to parents, guardians, and community members. By applying ink to paper, young individuals empower themselves and establish effective methods of sharing and expressing their values. The resulting print media will celebrate Chicago's rich printmaking heritage and act as a catalyst for cultural preservation, awareness, and dialogue within the school community. All right, so takes a village, y'all. Collaboration with other arts organizations and leaders. So this is something, I think all of us have probably utilized some kind of collaboration with other organizations. For instance, Ingenuity, the lovely hosts of this webinar as well today. And I think that it's vitally important for arts organizations, no matter how large or how small you are, to think about our fellow organizers and teaching artists as folks that we can collaborate with to really make sure that the curriculum that we're presenting and the collaborations that we're having with their schools are the best that they can be and are informed by all of these things that we've talked about to the best of our ability. So, some questions that you could ask yourself when thinking about collaboration with other arts organizations and leaders. Where do you feel your organization's bandwidth is falling short? Like, where can you call on other community members and other leaders in arts organizations to help provide some insight into, for instance, if you're a younger organization or you're just starting out as a teaching artist, who can you kind of look to as a mentor or as somebody who has a little bit more experience under their belt to potentially help out with what you're trying to achieve? Where might schools be desiring expansion in your curriculum that you cannot provide due to capacity? And How can collaboration with other arts organizations provide a gateway into expanding upon things that you might not have the potential to do so today? And then how do you identify organizations already doing similar work in the communities you're collaborating with? How can you expand your reach? All right. So I want to give a little example of that. And so this was a collaboration between After School Matters and Benito Juarez, as well as one of our artists in residence who is actually currently incarcerated at this time. So his name is Juan Hernandez. And so during this project, we're thinking about leaders in our community, and it's always important that when we think about leaders in our community, we're not leaving anybody out. And our incarcerated community members are making, whoopsies. Sorry, y'all, Ariel and I are sharing a mouse, kind of. So we're going back and forth with that to let y'all into the Zoom room. So our incarcerated community members are making waves in our culture and movements for freedom and justice. And we many times do not allow incarcerated individuals into the conversation of what's best for our neighborhoods and what's best for our students and our schools. So in early 2022, I was approached by the representative of incarcerated artist Juan Hernandez to see if the possibility of collaborating with his alma mater, Benito Juarez, would be possible given his incarcerated status. So Juan was sentenced to 45 years in prison at 16 years old. But through his time in the Dixon Correctional Center, he has cultivated an art practice for himself. And that has been his avenue for restorative justice for himself as he has been navigating the carceral system from such a young age. And after numerous conversations with the CPS volunteer department, the principal Benito Juarez, we were able to move forward with a project in collaboration with After School Matters. And the key point of collaboration here with After School Matters came about from our, at the time, lack of ability to pay students for their time working in the residency with the artists. And that was one of the concerns that the principal at Benito Juarez had, was, what else are we providing for the students in this collaboration? Like this is an amazing opportunity for them to get a look into the carceral system. Many of us have family members, friends, folks that we know who are incarcerated, and this is not something that we should shy away from when we're discussing leaders in our community, folks who are doing good work in our community. And so this collaboration was created out of a need for students to be paid for their work, as well as many are providing income for their families through the After School Matters program. So Juan Hernandez was able to be a virtual visiting artist for the students through this collaboration. So the project was titled Movimiento, or movement in Spanish, and students would be asked to capture moments of movement within the school, as well as the surrounding neighborhood of Pilsen. The photographs were then sent to Juan by mail in order for him to respond through painting and drawing, with a plan to exhibit the works in the school. This collaboration had a goal of expanding students' understanding of the carceral system from a creative lens, as well as motivate them to engage with community members beyond their immediate understanding of community outside of the prison system. Students were looking at examples of art making in carceral systems through the Prison and Neighborhood Arts Education Project, the Women in Prison Art Project, as well as the Cradle to Prison project to inform this work and their collaboration with Juan. Sorry, I'm just looking at all your comments. All right, so these are the paintings on the left side are Juan's direct responses to the photographs made by the students on the right. So here's one more, and I just like to share with you all one of the letters that was written to Juan in response to this collaboration. My name is Arisaidi. I'm 17 years old and I currently attend Benito Juarez. I'm also one of the people in the Seeking the Hero Within program, in which we take photos of a variety of things. For example, the movement project you have assigned for us. This collaboration with you has truly been a good experience. Not only was it an opportunity for me to learn more just how much effort goes into photography, but it also grants me the ability to expand my creativity and looking for ways to connect movement to culture or to everyday things like public transportation and simply people going on about their days. Overall, this project was very worthwhile, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to collaborate with you. All right. So after I know that was a ton of information, a ton of examples of things, I'd love to invite folks to, if they have any other responses based on the work that I've shown or things that we've talked about or have, follow-up questions for me, I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. But feel free to send it in the chat or come off mic, and we'll just take a couple minutes to see what folks are sharing.
Hey, Sophia, I have a question. And I think for me, it's most relevant with the After School Matters and Benito Juarez one, but you could answer it for any of the ones that you did. But I'd love to hear about like the experience of the teaching artist and like what they came away from by like having these collaborations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of our teaching artists tend to kind of really, they already have ideas of schools that they would like to work with or like in close proximity to them. And I think usually what they sort of come away from when they're actually able to tap into those communities and work with those communities is they feel like a stronger connection to the neighborhoods that they live in or the city of Chicago. But also, I think most of my artists, when I talk to them, they learn so much from the students. Like I think there's so much of their own art practice, I think, is informed by their collaboration with the students. So it is a really, really nice synergy that happens there, I think. And it's really, really lovely to hear just all, a lot of these stories that I'm talking about. I either have firsthand experience talking with the teachers, the students about it, or the artists come to me with all this amazing information about the schools that they had no idea about until they actually began to be ingrained in that community. So I think that's like one of the best takeaways from the artists themselves is just all of the amazing knowledge and history that they're able to experience from collaborating with their schools.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi,
Hi, this
Stephanie.
is Stephanie. Yeah, just had a question. I'm with the community and I work in safety advocation and with our schools for community outreach at Pritzker. And you hit on a lot of really interesting points of these examples of getting the children to think more about their greater community, and the last one about everyone that exists in Chicago and how they communicate and can mentor each other. It's a big part that I'm looking to build greater connection for. And one piece of that is the after school opportunities where children who talked about school being their safe, happy place and place they can rest, to be supported. And how much of this does happen after school? Like the wall of respect, that do they get to do any of that after school to keep building on it with the artist, or how does that piece work?
Yeah, it definitely, I think, depends on what the school is able to offer for like an after school program and things like that. I think we try not to step on too many toes in terms of how that can end up happening. But I think we have a pretty good mix of work that happens after school and work that happens within school. But yeah, I totally hear you, like those thinking about like the third spaces and how those are so important for student enrichment and continuing to find inspiration in art practices. It really does have to also happen outside of the school space or outside of the home space. And yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of our teaching artists will continue often do other projects outside of school and try to keep like in connection with the teachers from the schools that they worked with to let the students know about these offerings that are happening. one of our artists, Nathan Miller, he was working at Percy Julian High School at the time. And from that project that he did with Percy Julian, he started this completely new like collective called the Alt Gelt Garden Live. And their whole project was basically about showcasing the vibrancy and the beauty of the culture and the faces of all the folks who live in that neighborhood, which tends to be a neighborhood that gets a little bit overlooked within the Chicago public school system, just Chicago in general, because it is a very, very far south side neighborhood as well. So yeah, I think one of the things that I get really excited about when our teaching artists are working with the students is that they get to get insight into what a career would look like also outside of school, and really get into, like you said, kind of like a mentorship aspect of their collaboration that doesn't always happen, you know, with an art teacher in the school that they see every day, and they kind of mostly see that person as a teacher, but having the opportunity to kind of see into the career of like, this is like a working artist, like they're, you know, they're exhibiting there. And not to say that teachers at CPS aren't also doing that, but it does kind of shift like the mindset a little bit more into, yeah, like I totally could do this after school, like this person, you know, coming here, giving me that insight. Yeah, and it's really, really awesome to see. Thanks so much. Right. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Looking through the chat. Okay, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it. So I don't know about y'all, but we can take a 5-minute break just to kind of, you know, stand up, stretch a little bit. 2 hours is a long time. And yeah, it is 2:00, 2:10 right now. So I think at 2:15, I'm gonna come back and we're gonna get into the second part, and then I'll be joined by Kendall. Thanks so much, everybody. All right, everybody, it is 2:15. Hope you all got a little something to drink, something to eat, took a little bathroom break, had some time to stretch. Let's see. We said goodbye to a couple folks, but that's all right. Okay. I just want to get a little confirmation in the chat. Are we all ready to get started with part 2? I can get a thumbs up, a little heart, a little react, something. Okay. Wonderful. Cool. Okay. Gonna admit somebody. All right. Okay. Let's get into it. Grounding exercise part 2, everybody. So, thinking back to what you all shared initially in grounding exercise part 1 about your school experience and thinking back to your inner child, if you were to work with your childhood school, what kind of curriculum would you design to align with the culture and community of that school? What projects do you think you would have gravitated towards as a child in your school? Where do you feel collaborations with art organizations could have provided you with opportunities to grow and cultivate your artistic journeys? So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes. Again, type it out in the chat. You can write, you can draw, you can share it on mic afterwards, but put a little music on for everybody. Let's ease back in. All right, everybody. I know that was quick again. It's always so quick, but I would love to, you all can start sending those in the chat and I'll do a little share of my own, given what you all learned about my school experience growing up. I propose interdisciplinary Miami artist Lonnie Johnson would be a teaching artist in residence, collaborating with students on a community altar that honors and allows processing for student death, loss, and grief. As a student, I witnessed a lot of death due to traffic accidents where reckless driving felt like it was an all-time high in Miami. Lonnie Johnson's practice of creating space for ancestral spiritual memory could provide students with an avenue to process grief and loss through the practice of installation and found objects as memoriam. So these are one of Lonnie Johnson's wonderful pieces. She was actually one of my mentors as a Young Arts winner back in 2015. So she's an incredible, incredible person. All right, let me see. Laya, my wonderful roommate in the other room. I went to the same school for elementary and middle school. When I was getting older, we were getting a community garden built. In retrospect, I wish I had more of an opportunity to spend more time in that community garden, to get the experience of my hands burrowing through dirt, and to pair that with my education in science and social studies classes. I think students deserve more opportunities to reconnect with land, especially when technology plays a large role in their lives. Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. And Vero said, I was lucky that my small rural public high school had some excellent educators who saw my needs as a teen and encouraged me to develop my own curriculum, teaching music to younger learners. My senior year, I spent more than half my school day giving music lessons to fifth graders. I would have loved a truer collaboration with the band director in terms of getting to choose and conduct one song with the fifth graders during a concert, for example. Also, bringing in more professional musicians to perform would have made my life. We did get to see the Air Force Band play in our gym, and that was transformational. Let's see. Ariel said, I really would have loved a collaboration with my high school and our youth symphony orchestra. I didn't even know that youth symphony existed until halfway through my senior year, and I would have loved to have more opportunities to play more challenging music as a budding violist. Stephanie said, stronger support from local entities like Crest Art Center, greater financial investment like sponsoring summer camp for kids and paying the local artists to be part of the programming. Yeah, these are great, y'all. These are great. Thanks so much for sharing, everybody. Does anyone else want to send anything in the chat or come off mic, give a little something from their response? All right. So now that we've done our little grounding exercise, I would like to welcome back to the stage Mr. Kendall Hill, Student Programs Coordinator for the Department of Art Education at Chicago Public Schools. So thanks so much for being here, Kendall. So I'm just going to give a little deeper dive into Kendall's biography. Kendall Hill is an African-American photographer, writer, and events curator from Chicago, Illinois. His work focuses on youth, intimacy, and the moments between the present and the next. As a photographer, Hill is vigilant, patient, and inquisitive. In his event curation, he is dynamic and candid. Kendall is the current programs coordinator for Chicago Public Schools, Department of Art Education Unit, in charge of programming and facilitating large-scale art events for all 350,000 CPS students in the district. Since he took the position in 2022, Hill has created an arts festival exclusively for CPS students, Reverberate, which saw over 5,000 students participate in 2023. Hill has ambitious goals for expanding the visual arts exhibitions CPS hosts and frequently collaborates with SAIC, the Design Museum, and DK Chicago to make our arts experiences exciting for the youth. Welcome, Kendall.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
This is awesome. Such a great
Great.
thanks for such a great talk so far. It's been awesome.
Oh, thanks so much. That's so sweet of you. Awesome. So now everybody, this is going to be our discussion portion where I'm going to asking a few questions to Kendall, getting into some of his experiences and insight through his role at CPS, and also, his role as a native Chicagoan and CPS alumni as well. So to kick things off, Kendall, I would love for you to please share your responses to our prompts. So from the first prompt and the second prompt, if you would. Kendall is not only an amazing artist, but he's a wonderful writer. So I'm excited to hear what your experiences were like and what kind of curriculum you would have made for your school.
Yeah, so I shared my first response in the chat
Mm,
earlier. I'll just go back to reading that
yeah, get into it.
first. So I wrote, I loved my grade school. We were called the Superstars. Our that was our
Real
mascot.
superstars, really?
Yeah, I know. It's kind
That
of when I
was
was it was a
that
good
was my
school.
middle school
Oh, I
mascot.
think we talked about this
It
before. I'm
was,
pretty sure
yeah,
you
it,
mentioned this
it was
before.
a little star with a top hat and a cane.
Oh, we didn't have, it wasn't that
Oh,
crazy. You just had like
oh,
a little, it was kind of crazy. It was the Lakers colors too, because the star was gold and the base color was purple. I didn't really like
nice.
it at the time, but I like it more in retrospect because it was a
Yeah,
really good life metaphor. You know what I mean? To be the
yes,
superstars. But
yeah.
um, I wrote as our school mascot, and that sentiment really relished everywhere. Like I was just saying, before our school was torn down and rebuilt, it was old and small building. It was very much so like there was a hallway that went left, a hallway that went right, like most CPS buildings, I feel. Um, but what was awesome was that the outdoor space was so huge. It really felt like every day that you went to school, there was a new adventure. And you met a lot of people, obviously, in these playtimes. I think we had recess at the beginning of the school day, and
Mm,
like I think like God, I mean, obviously after too. So there was a lot of time that we were outside, which is what
mhm,
um, really I felt the best about when I was in grade school. I got into CPS when I was a freshman, not a freshman, God, I was a first grader. So um
super freshman.
right, exactly. So I knew some people in the school, but not everybody.
Mhm,
So I was a little bit, and I came in a couple weeks later, but it was really awesome to be able to like have those experiences. I don't know if you guys may have been able to guess the school that I went to, but I went to Skinner before there
mhm,
was multiple back back in the day when it was just Skinner, the one that's by Whitney Young.
right.
Um, and it was a really awesome school to grow up in, honestly. Um, and can you remind me of the second prompt?
Oh yeah, here, we can go right back to it. Here we go. Yeah, what kind of curriculum would you have designed for your child's self? Just
Yeah,
wondering.
I think that the curriculum I was designed, let's say that I really like middle school. My mom was, before she became a principal, was a middle school teacher, and she
Mhm,
taught eighth grade a lot. So when I was younger, I was like 12 or like 10 sitting in
mhm.
on eighth grade classes when I didn't go to school sometimes, the
Oh
few
yeah.
times. And what I really liked about her classes, is that it felt so conversational. It didn't really feel like they were being lectured. And that really holds true with the type of work that I'm doing now with students. I'm not a teacher by discipline, right? And Sophia knows this, but I'm
Mhm,
working in CPS. It's sometimes really taboo to not have had deep in classroom experience, the ways that my colleagues do, right? But what I really appreciate about learning and about working in CPS with students the way that I do, which is usually extracurricular art activities, is that the learning can be a lot more secular and a lot more real life. And it doesn't feel like it's just applying to this room in a classroom with a homework assignment, but rather that it's applying to like real life things that we're going to do. Students like really appreciate when they feel like their stakes of things that they do have real life implication. And it's like interesting how night and day their motivation changes when those things happen. And obviously there's not going to be a real life situation to always connect things to, but there are real life things going on every day, right? And there's things going on politically and socially, economically, things that can be integrated in a classroom. Artistically, there are movements happening every day that can inspire students to like think outside the classroom and like really not even like get them working, but just like it motivates themselves because they feel like they have bigger purpose.
Mhm.
Which is what really is the type of work that I like to hone in on with students when I have those chances. But I think I would design something that is very based on current events.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That was super insightful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I'd love to hear about your experience, attending different schools in the city, because I know that you went to Lane Tech High School as well, which um, is probably completely different school experience than you had at Skinner as well. And potentially any memories that you have of arts organizations working in your school, or anecdotes from your mom about arts partnerships as a principal.
Yeah. So I went to I think the most interesting school I went to Lindblom too for 7th and 8th grade
Mm.
for middle school only, which was the most different in the sense of like what was just going on at the school. With Skinner and Lane, it felt like there was a lot more it was a lot different of a freedom. At Lindblom is in God, what neighborhood? It's on 60th. I'm forgetting the neighborhood right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's yes, it's in Inglewood, of course. Thank you.
West Englewood.
You.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
When I was going, I got there in 7th grade, right, for their academic center. I think it was their first or second year it was going on. It was very coddled, because one, the academic center was new, and I think that we were the first class that was coming in. So I think that there was a lot of test piloting going on there.
Mm.
And also just the ways that we were like physically getting to school were very different too. Because of the neighborhood, like they were busing the younger students in from different hubs around the south side of Chicago. Which I was on one of them from wherever neighborhood I was living at the time. And um, while another interesting thing is that when I was younger, I really wasn't doing much like arts programs in school until I got to high school where I did journalism, right? But that was an intersecular thing with Lane Tech. But the reason I bring up Lindblom is because when I was that age, there were a lot of really creative and like smart, like Black boys and people around me who were really creative and like very artistic and stylistic in ways that we weren't really expressing in the day-to-day classroom. And they were also very athletic too. And one of these kids, he ended up going to Whitney Young after Lindblom. His parents worked for a media company that was doing like a local or like a national magazine. It was like for teens. It might have been called like Stars or something like that. But they were doing a magazine at the time, and he would always like be the person who was like had interviewers coming to the school and had like the new boys came to our school like right after You're a Jerk like dropped,
Oh.
all these crazy like artistic things that were like really keeping the culture feeling like it was so lively inside the walls of that school, even though we were not really going outside at all in the
Mm-hmm.
sense I was in high school and in elementary school. And I feel like just the natural me being able to explore them and the surroundings, and naturally just opens up your mind and your actual landscape more. But like when I was at Limblin, I feel like I was really invested in learning more about myself and like the people around me. And I probably knew at that time that I wanted to do art, but I still had no real A to B connection. My parents aren't artists either, so
Mm-hmm.
there's no real A to B connection of how to get there other than writing, which I was really good at. So I started a blog when I was in around that age,
Cool.
where I do like creative stories and stuff. But those are like the seeds of like what eventually became a creative career.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really exciting to hear how you said like the school felt so alive, even though, you weren't even going outside of the school, in that regard.
Yeah, Lindblom is a great school, and there
Mm-hmm.
was really like and great teachers there at the time too, and
Mm-hmm.
staff, and people were doing a lot of good stuff around CPS now. And I think that the class was just really great. A lot of the like my classmates from that graduated with me in
Mm-hmm.
eighth grade and grade right before me, really went on to do some great stuff. So
That's awesome. Great. So, as a leader in arts education at CPS, how do you think the school culture and creative needs have changed since you were a student? So thinking back to your time in the classroom and your time working with students now, like what do you feel like some of the biggest differences have been, in terms of what students are thinking about creatively?
Yeah, I think that now, when I was younger, it felt like everyone was a lot more siloed, and that like people who were creative, and this like is also attesting to what I did. I was really just writing when I was in high school, and I didn't pick up a camera, until a little bit after that. But it felt like even me as just being a writer, like, and I was running, I was doing sports as well. Those were like the two like holes of people I was siloed in, and you would step out to like kind of as a writer, you had to talk to a lot of different people, but it wasn't like you were collaborating in the same way as I feel like we are nowadays. I feel like artists, just in general, but then also students have to be pretty multifaceted in a way that we really weren't when I was just, not even that long ago, but um 10 years ago, right? I think that students are not really just artists anymore. Like this group of students I work with, called the Art Student Voice Committee, who I meet with every Thursday tonight, and we do different arts things, and they help with policy and throwing some of the events that we're doing. Most of them aren't even artists. Like some of them are like really great at science. One of them's a baker, like they do kind of different things and have art as like this ulterior like form of expression and way of like interacting with the world too. Whereas I feel like when I was um doing arts education as a CPS student, it felt like those things didn't collide as much as they do now. But I think that it's important that they do because that just makes you a much more informed person, you know, or a much more informed artist too, you know.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And what do you think about, the arts landscape of Chicago as well from, when you were a student to your roles now?
Much better than it was back then. I feel like there's a lot more investment in the arts, like just on like many different levels, on the um like ground level with actual artists wanting to do projects and wanting to do things inside and outside of Chicago on many different levels. And then also just the actual like attention and perhaps funds. I don't exactly know what the funding situation
Yeah.
was, back when I was a child, but it feels like there's a lot more good intention going into like making arts prevalent in any day-to-day person's life in Chicago. Whether it be free performances or like exhibitions that you can see, great art at every year too.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then going back to your time working with that student council
Oh yeah.
with the DAE, what are some of the things that students are most excited about, exploring in their artistic communities, and what kinds of opportunities do you see them craving?
Yeah, I mean, they want to do real things. Like that's kind of what I feel like every time that we're kind of working on a new project is so like tonight we are sending out I think 500 postcards to different schools to talk about this arts programs that is restarting that the DAE sponsors next year. So students can apply for the deadline in a couple of weeks. We're going to look at a flyer that we're making for the festival that we throw every year. Reverberate, not every year, God, this is only the second year, but
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully every year, right? Exactly. But we're looking at postcards and flyers. I designed a postcard, but they designed a flyer for
Cool.
this festival that is going to go out to like a bunch of different marketing pushes and stuff around our Instagram channels and then just into the world as we get closer to the dates. And so I feel like they just really want to do like things that feel like they're going to like matter. I don't know how to really explain it more than that. Even if it wasn't this, I don't really think it's like anything to do necessarily with, the way that the topic is approached. I just think that the agency is like something that they crave. There's not many times with this group that we're doing stuff that like doesn't need to happen. I feel like we're busy. We used to meet every other week, but now we meet every week this year because we were just last year, but on the times that we're not doing much, they always are kind of craving or asking me like, is there more that we can do? Because they kind of also see the agency behind these things too. And they're getting older. All of them are in high school. I think most of them are sophomores and above. So, there's like a running time too, literally the school year, but then also with like their time in this system that they can make these changes. And I think that they're anxious to do those things or to like leave an imprint beyond themselves too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially I think like sophomore year tends to be kind of like when you get that fire underneath you about thinking about your future, and your advisors and your teachers are kind of talking to you about that a little bit more. So that makes a lot of sense that they're asking for more agency and making decisions about like real things that are going to go out in the world, outside of just their school setting as
Yeah.
well. Awesome. And then
Literally.
what can you talk a little bit potentially about student experiences with partnerships, and how you think maybe partnerships with outside organizations are helping to poise them to be leaders in their artistic communities? Have they ever talked to you a little bit about those kinds of things that are happening in their schools?
I was just reading some of the stuff with the chat,
Oh, yeah.
but with the arts organizations, I feel like there are many arts organizations across CPS that are very anxious and like willing to um, do the work with students, right? I think that the converging of many different arts programs or activities to like have this cross-pollination that I'm kind of talking about, or at least that I was mentioning, is like very important too. I think that there's not a shortage of students who necessarily want to be engaged in the perfect arts program for them, but I think that there's a level of sometimes they don't know because ultimately like students still don't really check their emails all the time, or like they're still just like not always their minds are everywhere, right? So sometimes it takes a while to like hit a message home, right? Or to be able to like express that you can go here and do these things like if you just like sign up, right? And I was telling them about, and I didn't expect them to know this, but earlier this school year, we were looking at Edra Soto's screen house work that was at Millennium Park. I was
Yeah.
just telling them like, these were all public dollars. Like these were things that like, this is exactly how she did it. And they were just mind blown that even that was a possibility of something that you could do, right? And I think that it's important to like expose them to all these things, not so that they can make these choices today, but so that they can make them in the future as a more informed and like well thought out individual who lives in this society with opportunities, and just like letting the opportunities be there for them to possibly engage in the future. Because I think similarly, I wasn't really looking to do art before I got to college and like realized, well, that's what I really want to do. But I kind of knew some things to do in Chicago, at least artistically, because I had heard about them in the past. And I feel that that's important to know too.
Yeah,
So they're always
absolutely.
looking for those things. And our partners that we work with, Soundtrap, Spotify, Apple, just random, people who are helping us with the festival, but then also who we've just built a relationship with over the years. They're like always ready to kind of get into some new work that we're planning.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kendall. I think now this would be, we have about 15 minutes left. I think I want to open up the floor to some questions for you. Folks have some more questions for me. I think there already is one in the chat from Stephanie. And she asks, how successful do you feel the messaging is getting out to kids to sign up for things? So those that might need a push for engagement, but have strong skill set or need for art engagement. Yeah, how successful do you think the messaging has been?
I don't think it's that great, I will be honest. I feel like it's really hard to, because of the rules, CPS is a large ship, and it's hard to, marketing is very current, like marketing
Yeah.
is very, very current. It's hard, it's like those things kind of happen immediately. And I think that it's hard to like do all of the interesting marketing schemes that we might have with like like I was saying, we're about to go and like send out literally 500 postcards
Right.
ourselves, right? Like, and not that that's a bad idea because it is very like guerrilla in the sense of just like sending out postcards and have a something you can scan on the back of them, but we can't like really push out information digitally at the speed of light. We have an Instagram, but like students aren't really checking Instagram or like follow our Instagram pages. I don't know, if I was younger, I just wouldn't have followed like
Yeah.
our public school's Instagram,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for all the great things that, or like we have CPS Arts, which I think is more favorable, but still like not everyone knows about that.
Mhm.
We can't make a TikTok, which I like since day one wanted to do, and that's like
Yeah.
understandable. But it's like there's ways to push out information very fast,
Mhm.
and I feel like our like 1, 2, 3 step of doing them
Mhm.
sometimes can only be so effective in such a
Right.
large district.
Mhm.
It really
Yeah.
is word of mouth that like really needs to like see through, and we do that like through having um we do that through having a um like a teacher task force and a student voice committee as well too,
Mhm.
that can like be our stewards on the ground essentially, and that can be people that spread the word outside of just the Department of Arts Ed and our social media channels.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think a follow-up question, how can we support you in this at a school level? If you have any ideas or you know what could be possible there. I know that
Yeah,
there are
I
so
think
many schools.
yeah, I think that at a school level, it's really just about being in the know of the different events that are going on. I think following the Instagram, and then if you see anything that students might be interested in, like just pushing it out to them is kind of the
Mhm.
best way really because ultimately it's just like trying to get students more engaged in arts programs, and just letting them know about that can go a really long way, I feel.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Thank you.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions for myself or Kendall as we are closing out this webinar here? 2 hours goes by a lot quicker than I thought. Ariel asks, what are some of the ways arts partners can get info about their programs to the Department of Art Education?
I think honestly, just sending us an email would be great.
Oh yeah, Kendall, would you actually put your email in the chat? I totally forgot to put that in the slide.
Yes, that's the email for general inquiries that I just sent. And also my email is here too. Either of those really work. Or if you CC both, then everyone would be able to see them. But really just emailing about different arts programs is kind of the best way. We really check our emails all the time. It's like 25% of my job, I'm pretty sure. But and like really connecting the dots is like our main push most days too, and trying to make accentuate things as best as possible. So email is really great. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. Cool. All right. Anybody else? How does DAE collect student reflections on experiences with art partners? Any advice for art partners on creating ways to gauge how students feel about art partner programming?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do surveys. We really are a fan of surveys and have a bunch uh like at the end of our programming seasons for multiple different programs that we have. The festival, our different performing arts groups, and the student voice committee, they have a survey as well too. It's really just like trying to figure out like really firsthand how they feel, and then like we have a data specialist as well who helps us kind of interpret what these things mean and like maybe what we should do about it. And we like really use these data to kind of like birth some of the ideas that we come up with. Puzzle being one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any advice for art partners on, ways that they can sort of gauge how the students are feeling about art programming?
Yeah, I think that also doing a survey or like literally like having them leave, if you were to have something written up in a Google Doc and or like the different programs, I don't know exactly how um what level of engagement the students are having, but if they're just students, right? I think literally just having them do a survey at the end of the year and or if you had different um exercises or lesson plans that you literally were like, I'm not sure if students would want these things, I would just ask them and say like, out of these three things, which like really appeals to you and like leave a comment on the Google document as to why you might or might not like these things because they'll just verbatim really give an answer that could like really change the way you think about it too. And that's what we do. At least when we're trying to figure out different workshops or different ways to communicate things. Sometimes they'll just be like, no one would read this, and we wouldn't send it out, you know?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Another question. I think this question, yeah, would be better to connect offline for this. But thank you so much for asking this, Molly.
Yeah, I think that we definitely do. And we are working to like have different either arts organizations or schools come to these like come and perform at these different spaces at the Reverberate Festival at the end of the year too. So definitely something that if you were to email us about, I could send you the application right away.
Cool. So we have about a little over 5 minutes left. I think we can close out the Q&A unless anybody else has some last minute questions. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Kendall. This was super insightful. It was lovely to hear about your experiences and get some insight from the students that you work with as well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, great. All right. So I would just like to say thank you so much to everybody who joined today. This was so out of my comfort zone, but I feel really, really grateful and lucky to be part of this opportunity. And I just want to leave you all with a little closing of some of the books that I've been reading, some of the things that I've been thinking about that have been helping my professional development and helping me to become a more culturally competent administrator in the arts education field. So these are some of the books that I referenced when making this presentation, and just things that I'm generally really excited about that I think give some good insight into the cultural experiences of the Chicago Public Schools and Chicago as a whole as well. Sorry, just looking at the chat. Oh, everyone's just saying thank you. Okay. Awesome. But yeah, I will also be creating a document that gives a little bit more information, the artists that I referenced within the presentation and other potential tools that you all can walk away from. And also shout out the music that I presented here as well. But yeah, that is pretty much it from me here today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, for participating, for sharing so much and being vulnerable and open to share your experiences. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, let's have another thank you for Sophia, and also thank you to Kendall for taking the time to be part of this today and sharing so much about your life and your work. This has been really great. We're really excited to follow up with you all with some of the resources that Sophia has. And we also want to make sure that you know kind of what is on the horizon, what's coming up. So, oh, there it is. Sorry, I got to go back to that one. So we have some upcoming Constellation events. So if you like what you've seen here, and maybe you got a chance to also hear from Liz last month, next month, we will be hearing from Andrew DeMiro from Guitars Over Guns, and his session is from band member to board member, sustaining a culture of student leadership in arts programs. And sneak peek, I'm pretty sure there's going to be like a musical performance at that one. So if you're into that, and that one's a little bit later because Andrew will be joined by one of his students who has now become has more of a leadership role in the organization. So that's March 21st from 3 to 5. And then in April, we'll hear from Tyra Bullock, who is the Associate Director of Education at Goodman Theater. And her session is Empowering Perspectives, Centering Black Voices in Arts Education. So for everyone who has been looking forward to these conversations about leadership and hearing from your colleagues, we're really excited for sharing more of those with you. And if you'd like to register for any of those, I am dropping our event page into the chat right now. And then, of course, your feedback about these sessions is really important. So in the chat, I have dropped also our exit survey for this program, and there's also a QR code here on the screen. So if you want to scan that, you can. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again to Sophia. Thank you, Kendall. Thank you to all of you for being part of this and sharing with us today. And we'll see you at the next one.